for joining us for this panel where we're going to really go on a journey and really explore why women truly hold the power in terms of saving the world and saving our planet. So just to remind you again, my name is Fiona. I'm part of an organization that supports African women in research. We specifically work with women in research looking to find the solutions to our most pressing issues. And we try to find ways to make sure that all of their ideas, all of their research doesn't just stay in the universities, in papers, in theses, that those are really being translated into real things, tangible things that are going to really help the world. And today we're going to go on a bit of a journey. We're going to start sort of in Kenya and find out what women are really doing here. Really tangible things, and we're going to then move along and look at it from a global perspective. But before we start the journey, I just want us to get a sense of what the reality is right now. In terms of, and I'll ask you guys a question actually, I'll get you guys involved here. Who do you think is getting more and more affected by the effects of climate change, men or women? Women. And by how much do you think women are being more affected than men when it comes to being displaced? And by displaced, I mean they're being moved from their homes because of floods, because of droughts. By how much do you think women are being more affected than men? If you had to throw a figure out. Who said 70? Up. It's 80%. So 80%, we're being more affected, especially when it comes to being displaced. When it comes to in Kenya, we talk about farming and as a way of producing, sustainable food, and the environment plays such a big role in our farming and providing food to feed us. In our country, 70% of farmers are women, yet only 1% of agricultural land or farmland is owned by women. And so we are really not holding the power in terms of decision making and deciding what we are doing with our environment. And so this needs to shift. And at present, we're looking at, the people making decisions on what we do with the environment and the choices we're making. 1 in 3 is a woman. So it's mostly men that are making the call, yet we're the ones who are mostly being affected. But women are incredibly powerful. We are 2.5 times more likely to hold our governments accountable. We go to our governments and tell them, actually, no, this is not working for us, and we need change and demanding change. We are also 60% more likely to put ourselves on the line when we're calling for change. And we're 2 times more likely to really be active in sort of activism and looking for solutions that are going to benefit everybody. So what are we doing? If we have all these women amongst us who have the power and the willingness to go out and fight for what we need, why are we not putting them in positions of power? But I don't want to leave us in that space. I want to tell you that there is actually women doing things to change this, and that's what the journey we're going to go on today. So we have the first person I really want to invite to speak is Victoria. Victoria worked in sort of women in action in Kenya, in the environmental sustainability and circular economy. And your work is economy initiatives. And what role do women play in making these efforts more impactful? Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Fiona. As she has mentioned, my name is Victoria, and I work for Soko Kenya. Our initiative is Kujua Initiative, and in Kujua Initiative, what we do is we turn textile waste, that is the cut pieces from the textile industry, into reusable sanitary towels. And with the reusable sanitary towels that we make from the cut pieces from the factories, the textile factories, they are 3 years, you can use them up to 3 years. And with the reusable sanitary towels, our goal or what led us into making reusable sanitary towels, we were looking at it in this way. What can we make that is sustainable, and at the same time, what are the materials that can we use so that you're able to reduce waste in the factory that we work with? With the Soko Community Trust, we have a factory, and we were asking ourselves, what can we do? So from there, we were able to look at the materials available, and these are the cut pieces, and we were able to make the reusable sanitary towels. And who do we give these reusable sanitary towels to? One, they are affordable in that anybody can buy them. And other than that, we are working with the school-going girls from the marginalized communities in Kilifi County, that is Kilifi South, and also we have worked in Taita Taveta, and we give girls in schools the reusable sanitary towels. And other than that, when you talk about menstrual hygiene management, it's not just the product, but also we train them on menstrual hygiene management and also life skills. So our main aim is that we are looking at the long-term effect of what we are doing. How are we supporting these girls so that they are able to remain in school? And you remember that education is power, and you have just had the titles that, our panelists here were like, I'm a doctor. So we want our girls to go through the education, and we don't want any gaps or areas that will make them not be in school and be able to achieve all that they want to achieve. So we give them reusable sanitary towels, and currently we are not only working with school-going girls, but you look at the textile industry, the garment and the textile industry. Like we have 60 to 80% of women working in the garment and the textile industry, and you find that the pay is not that high, and most of the time these women they're not able to afford the disposable sanitary towels. And you find that there is a lady and she has a daughter, so she'll forego herself, like she'll have to use the products. For example, she'll have to cut some pieces of clothes to use so that her daughter can get the pad. So how are we supporting these women in the garment and textile industry so that the cut pieces that they are cutting, how can we make an item that will also help them to stay at work? Because for me, I believe that you need to have something that you're doing, and you need to contribute. Yeah, you can contribute differently in your family, but if you look at the women working in the textile industry, they are there to support their families. They are there so that they are able to make a living, and what they are getting is normally it's not enough, and therefore something like products like reusable sanitary towels or just the disposable products, if they're not able to get, then you'll find that she's not going to work, and they're always on casual basis. So when you're on a casual basis, remember that day you're not paid because you're not able to go to work. And if you're not paid, your family is going to go angry, or your child is not going to get school fees. So what we do right now is we partner with different factories, and with these factories, they're able to buy or support us with producing these reusable sanitary towels. And this support, for example, they're able to give us their cut pieces so that we are able to make the reusable sanitary towels and support with these women. So if you look at our organization, our founder is a woman, and she was looking at what can I do so that I can support other women. And supporting these other women is not just women who are grown up, but also this young girl who wants to make it or who wants to achieve her potentials. How can she achieve what she wants? So other than her not being able to go to school because of a product, how can I look for a product that is sustainable? So that is what we were able to come up with reusable sanitary towels. And as I said, materials we use are the offcuts from the textile industry. And so far we are working with donors and well-wishers who have been able to support us, and we have been able to reach up to 20,000 girls in school. Yeah. And I normally love to say this: when you give a girl a pad, one, you are helping this girl to achieve all that she wants. Other than that, we are reducing teenage pregnancy, because you find that the society we are in, stigma around menstruation is very high. Even going to ask for that pad with your mom, these are conversations that are not happening in our household. Most of the time we leave it for our teachers, the teachers in school, to start talking about reproductive health. And it's supposed to come from the house, the community. We are the primary socialization agent. So in the society we are in, these are conversations that are not there. And the next thing, this girl is going to the wrong person, and you find her, she's pregnant. And the schools that you have worked in, reduced teenage pregnancy is very high. And I'll say that right now we are reporting 0 teenage pregnancy. And if you other than that, before I end, other than that, transition rates. Like for example, in our education system, right now I know they have changed, but 844. When there was 844, you finish your class 8, you go to Form 1. Transition rates for girls are very high. They are going to secondary school. We are not only giving the parts, but we are also training them around life skills. So I'm looking at an adolescent girl who is transitioning from a child to an adult. She really needs a lot of support. So giving her the product and also training is very important to us. And we have seen a lot of impact with what we're doing. So we are not only reducing waste, we are also empowering women. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Victoria. That was wonderful and then a beautiful example of what happens when you give women the opportunity to lead and create, because the things we create usually consider so many things. So it's not only a product, it's the training, it's everything that comes with it. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. I now want to go to Mwanase. You bring together sustainable tourism, cultural preservation, and human rights activism in your work. How can activism and active citizenry drive environmental conservation efforts, and what role do women play in mobilizing communities to advocate for and protect their rights and their environment?
Thank you. I'm Mwanase, current CEO of Distant Relatives Eco Lodge and Backpackers. So Distant Relatives actually tries to provide and explore a model of how businesses can do things differently. Industry, tourism, a lot of businesses generally have very exploitative practices, whether it's of local labor forces, of natural resources, of cultural appropriation. So Distant Relatives strives to be a model as to how we can do business in a way that has mutually beneficial relationships with our local communities and works more harmoniously with our environment. So you're welcome to come and chat with us, learn a little bit about it. It's through grey water systems, building designs, upcycling waste, employing from our local community, nurturing local talent and art. And so there's a lot of very practical ways that we have explored, and it's a journey, it's not a destination. So in case you would like to share ideas as to how to bring more, I don't like to use the word sustainability, because I think unless you're living under a coconut tree, wearing coconut palm fronds, drinking coconut water, planting coconuts, planting more trees, that's truly living sustainably. So we look at how do you integrate elements of sustainability into your approach. So happy to share more ideas there. And I think as we have this conversation today, we're looking at the role of women, women of all ages, backgrounds. I think historically, if we look backwards, women have always had a very important role, and I think naturally, especially mothers, but even from I don't like to generalize, first of all, because across genders you can find people with all qualities. But you have an important role within your home, within your community, within your family, and generally, as Dr. Fiona was saying, the effects of climate change or lack of access to natural resources, it's not just for the beauty of nature. It's water, it's shade, it's how you cook, firewood, how you wash your body. So all of that depends on environment. It's safety of your home. So the negative effects drastically affect your ability to maintain and just to live. And I think there's beautiful historical moments of women who have done incredible things towards protecting nature. There's one example that I believe we all know, but I think it has an important message, is of Wangari Maathai, right? So I think, hands up if you don't know this story. Okay, so she relates the story of a big fire is burning, and you can take one of three roles. There's a big fire in the forest, a forest that everybody depends on for their ecosystem, for their life. One is you lit that fire, right? Maybe you are a part of the problem. So in conserving nature, conserving an environment, you can take a few different positions. One is you could actively be a part of the problem. Two, is you could sit back and watch the problem happen. It may be something minor, maybe someone throwing garbage in front of you, maybe your waterways being polluted, maybe deforestation. So, and then 3 is you could try to be a part of the solution. So in that story, there's a little hummingbird that went back and forth bringing drops of water to put out the fire, and the elephants and the other animals who could have probably been more effective stood by. But the point is to be the hummingbird, to find your own unique way that you can participate. You know, some women may choose to do arts, or to be a doctor, or to be a lawyer, or to be a mother only, which is also more than enough, or to participate in government, or you know, there's so many different unique ways, all of which are extremely important towards being active in our community. And I think so yeah, as we look back, and I think I really encourage us here, a lot of the roles of women historically that are silenced, are erased, are not, you know, noted. So when we look back at our own history from this country, from other countries, women have always played a significant role in mobilizing their communities, in advocating for better, in protecting their people. So look back into other history, find some stories, find some local organizations who are documenting history, talk to your communities, learn from your grandparents, because the role of women is also really silenced in our mainstream history. So there's some really incredible and inspiring stories out there. And I think summing it all up, I think one thing that we have to remember, which is really important, is interdependence. For me, you can't talk about environmental conservation without talking about livelihood generation. We can't protect a specific area and say, don't cut down that tree or don't chop off that dead wood when that person has no way to cook their dinner. So whether we're talking about the well-being of communities or access to education or ability to stay in school or, you know, natural resource conservation, we really have to take a holistic approach. So that's where, you know, the approach of looking at sustainability, it's centered around people. It's centered around well-being. It's centered around environment, around culture, around financial sustainability. And there's parts for everybody to play. As an individual, as communities, government also have a role to fulfill. So no part is more or less important. And I think, just to sum it up, activism. And for me, I think, okay, hand up if you care about your environment. Hand up if you think people being able to eat food and have water is important. Hand up if you believe that, you know, we should care about each other's well-being. Okay, hands down. Hand up if you are an activist. Okay, hands down. So, activism is really caring. That's what it is. It's caring about people. It's caring about your planet. It's speaking up if somebody is next to you. Maybe they're being bullied. It's standing up to try to help take care of them. It's getting involved in community initiatives. Activism is not a special title reserved for specific people. Each and every one of us should be active in various ways. So sometimes removing titles is important to remember that we all are a part of creating active change in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Monase. Thank you. Thank you for reminding us that we are activists just by even being here today. So thank you for that. And the story of Wangari Maathai and the hummingbirds is absolutely beautiful. And I think to be a very effective hummingbird, you also have to look after yourself. So I want us to move on to Tara. Tara is going to, so you focus on women's mental well-being as a foundation for leadership. How can mental health awareness and support help women become more effective in their roles as change makers, especially in solving global crises?
That's a mouthful. I think I'll borrow the hands up. Hands up if everybody's having a good day today. Hands up if sometime this week you didn't have a very good day. Hands up if a woman made you feel better on that day? And for the women whose hands are up, how many people took care of you that day? Hands up if you had somebody take care of you that day. The less. That's why I focus on women. Women are, everybody struggles with well-being, and well-being is having just a sad day, having a day where you don't feel you're happy, something has made you feel low, or something has not gone your way, or your team has not won. That's a normal sad day. Happy day is where something has made you happy and you're excited and you're happy. The trick is having more happy days and sad days, but unfortunately, it takes work. You have to actually look for happy things every day. And why I focus on women, the mummies, the aunties, is because they are the best people who take care of everybody else. But very few people take care of them. So I'm teaching them how to take care of themselves better, how to make sure they're always happy, surround themselves with good friends, eat good food, dance when they get the opportunity, just to be happy. And women are already doing amazing things. We're seated on a dock with, I'll say 3.5 doctors, because I'm on the way there. And we still have sad days with no one taking care of us. Imagine if we lived in a world where women were better taken care of, how much more would they do compared to what they're already doing? So it's very important for everybody, for us women next to each other, for the men in this organization, for the children, to also make sure your mommy is fine, your aunties are fine, because they're already doing great things and they'll do so much better if they're also taken care of. And that's how they become even better leaders, despite them being leaders already. So how this came about was I was also one of those people who struggled a lot, trying to be the best mommy, best wife, best employer, and I didn't do very well. I could not sleep, I could not eat, I was not very happy, and I just sat down and said something has to change. And I started taking care of myself, and I got friends who I held hands with, and we all took care of ourselves. And slowly I became better, and that's why I'm very confident sitting here talking to all of you. And if we can continue that, that's what She's Africa focuses on. Can we form a community of women who are supporting each other and taking care of each other? So not only are they surviving in leadership, but they're actually thriving.
Thank you. Thank you, Tara. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for that reminder that it comes down to us being well. If we are well, all is well. So thank you for that reminder. Now we can look after ourselves, right? We can eat well, we can exercise, we can surround ourselves with good people, but we're operating in a system that is not really built for us, and that makes it extra hard, and which is why, you know, the well-being and taking care of ourselves is like doubly important. But now I want to go to Yvonne to really talk about what can we do to change the system. And what can we do to work with policymakers, with business, with private sector, with the government to change the system for not only for the women but for the betterment of everybody, and how we look after our environment. So your work bridges climate change adaptation, private sector innovation, and sustainability. How can businesses, especially here in Africa, be empowered to integrate climate adaptation strategies into their core operations, and what role do women leaders play in driving the shift towards more resilient and sustainable business practices? Thank you, Yvonne.
Thanks, Fiona. Thanks, I'm so happy to be here with all of you today. I hope you're happy to see me and happy to have us here. You know what I find very interesting about this topic, I think every single person is a change agent, right? We're all incredibly powerful and we all have power within us that we should be activating to change the world, right? But the reason why we're sitting here and talking about women, and women specifically, is because the world makes it very difficult for women to engage, right? It makes it very difficult for women to have access to the same opportunities. It makes it very difficult for women to even have access to the same pay that men have, right? And so the reason why we're all sitting here is not to say that women are more powerful than men. That's not the narrative that I want to push. The narrative is that we need to put us all on the same playing field, right? We all need to have access to the same opportunities. We all need to have access to the same, to deal with the challenges that were put forward in the same way, okay? So I wanted to preface by saying that because I'm a climate scientist, and so climate change is obviously the thing that keeps me up every single night, and I hope it keeps us all up to some degree. And there's so much science and so much information that's coming out that's not encouraging, in the sense that where we live in this region, in Kenya, in Africa, we are unfortunately locked into the really negative impacts of climate change for the next 100 years at least. So if you think the droughts that we're experiencing right now are bad, they're only going to get worse. If you think the floods that we're experiencing right now are bad, they're only going to get worse. And if you look across the globe, everything from heat stress, everything from sea level rise, all of these different physical impacts are only going to get worse. And when things get worse, who are the people who get affected even more, to a greater degree, right? So Fiona started pointing it out in the beginning. It is those who are already vulnerable, right? So first of all, it's an Africa conversation, because we're already vulnerable, because unfortunately, we live in a continent which has the highest rates of poverty, right? So when things go bad, we get affected more, right? We are also a very youthful continent, and youth are also considered very vulnerable, right? Because access to opportunities, access to employment is difficult for this age group as well. And then we bring it now to women. Women are also very vulnerable. So the worst impacts of climate change that we experience, it is the women who are going to be affected to a greater degree. All of this to say, and the reason why I do what I do is because I think businesses are very powerful, right? I think they're powerful from two different ways that we can look at it. On the one hand, when we think about the money, where the money is, right? Who has the money? The businesses. It's the businesses that have access to resources, have access to capital, that can fund projects, that can fund resilience, that can fund adaptation. All of this, it is the businesses that have access to this money, right? And for the longest time, governments, even today as we sit, we're always looking outside to say, who can give us money? Who can help us do this? Who can help us do that? But what I really focus on is on mobilizing local capital. How do we work with businesses on the continent that have resources that can fund these projects, that can help us, become more resilient and more adaptive to the impacts of climate change, okay? So businesses have the money, and they're ready to give that money. I think that's the other thing that I want to talk about today. NCBA, one of the businesses that I work very closely with, has set aside 100 million Kenya shillings annually for projects that fund women, for projects that fund youth. We have a very big focus on women and youth. So 100 million shillings every year that the bank says we are going to give it to the communities to fund their projects, to build mentorship and training. Because, Fiona talked earlier on about how only 1% of women in this country have access to agricultural land. When you don't have access to land, can you get a loan? No, it becomes very difficult to access credit, to access money. And for women to run a business, you need money, right? So as a bank, we're very, very focused. I'm sure you've all heard of Fuliza, Mshwari. These are all things you've heard about, yeah? Do you know the bank that is responsible for Mshwari and Fuliza? NCBA, right? So we're very focused on making sure that we have access to these opportunities that is beyond these areas that make it very difficult for women, right? So you don't have to have access to land or have a title deed to access credit from the bank through Fuliza or Mshwari. The other thing that I wanted to quickly talk about is just this idea that businesses are responsible for some of the problems that we're seeing today. When we think about emissions, and I'm sure all of you, my budding young scientists in the room, you all know what is really responsible for the climate crisis that we're in today. It is that there's too many emissions that are being emitted by businesses, and specifically by the banks, because we fund all of these businesses. So there's an opportunity on that side for banks to really think about who do they fund. If you are a dirty energy industry, if you're a dirty, quote unquote business, then as a bank, we're saying we're going to stop giving you money. And in that way, we redirect the work that businesses are focusing on. So all to say, businesses have a lot of power, but they're also really willing to listen to us. My business started because I knocked on many doors until someone opened a door and listened to me. So if there's anything I would like to tell you about sort of women, use your power. You're all incredibly powerful, but don't wait for anybody to come and look for you. If there's no space, you create that space for yourself. If there's nobody who's giving you an opportunity, you stamp on the floor and you throw a tantrum until someone listens to you. So yeah, I think maybe that's how I would preface it.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you for that. I think that's sometimes a misconception. It's as if, we talk about women's empowerment as if we don't have power or we were disempowered at some point. We are extremely powerful. It's like having a bike that is really like this fancy, mountain bike, but it has no chain. You're not going anywhere. So we need to build the chain, and those are the opportunities that we need. Just give us a little bit of space, and we can show you. And that takes me to our final panelist today, Tanya. I want us to kind of zoom out and look sort of from a global perspective and look more broadly in terms of really, what is it? What are the unique qualities and approaches that women bring to the table when driving transformative change and engaging in really critical, hard conversations? Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you. And I think we have already heard that. So I think half of the questions already answered. Let me start by saying, because I'm dealing with sort of political crisis, wars. Yeah, what has that to do with environment and with climate change and with women? Because war is a lot a man's affair, and that's why men think they should also. Should I take the other one? No, I think. Okay, let me keep it closer. Is it good like this? Okay. So, men are always, as you know, more involved in wars, mainly, than women. But then when it also comes to talking about peace and ending wars, they think they should sit there and make all the decisions. Yeah? So, obviously that's wrong. But what's the link here to, what has this to do with climate crisis? So it has to do because in my work for a long time, I thought, okay, they're the people who deal with the climate and the people who deal with war and politics. And these are two different things. And more, it becomes so clear, the connection, because, the climate crisis creates a lot of conflicts. There's not enough water. People fight for water. There's not enough land. The land is not usable. So people fighting about resources. That's one aspect. The other one is, if you think about wars, and we have quite many on the continent, wars destroy the environment. So it's a vicious cycle. So if we have more wars, we have more environmental destruction. That's why at the COP24, they said it's a peace COP. They said that. It was, of course, not. Yeah, because they said you should now make peace and sign peace agreements, and then everything is good for the environment, but they didn't do anything. They just talk about it. And that's what the main global feature is. People talk a lot about how the world could be better, but people don't do it. So here we come to women. So it's like Manasseh said, it's not about women are always better than men. There's amazing men, and I guess a lot of them here. So, but what we see also, and there's a lot of research about it, is when women come together collectively, they have never been against peace, against change. When they are collectively, they always put all their power together in motherhood, sisterhood, daughterhood, whatsoever, to thrive for change. Yeah? And that's evidence. So, how does that look like? I just want to give you some examples. So, there were the peace talks on the Darfur region in Sudan. And the guys were sitting at the table with all those people in suits and ties who wanted to mediate and say, like, I'm the one who ends this war, and you people talk. And then they talked and fought about the boundaries and what could be A or B or who has this. And then the woman came and said, like, what are you fighting about? That river has dried out. That whole area is destroyed. What are you even fighting about? You should talk about the real things that matter, yeah? How are the needs of people met? How water comes to the community? How this and this? Because nobody will ever vote for you again, ever, if you're not taking care of people. So what women do a lot is they push. They push a lot. It's like you said, they knock on the doors. There were, for example, in Liberia, which is a very famous example because the two women who knocked on the doors of the peace process they got the Nobel Peace Prize thereafter for it. So what they did is they said, you guys have to make a peace agreement because we in this country, we are fed up, we are sick and tired of this war. We women want to stop the war. How did they do it? Sisterhood. The first thing they did is they traveled to the neighboring countries where the peace talks were, and who hosted them? The sisters, yeah? The networks. They said, you can sleep on our couches, we feed you, be here, go to these people, talk to them. Then they brought it back to their country, and what they did is they sat in front of the building where the talks were, and they said, we're not going to move here before you've signed the agreement. Then the police came, the army came, they said, we're going to all put you away, yeah? And then the elderly woman said, if you put us away, we're going to strip naked. And you know what that means in our societies? Stripping naked as an elder is impossible. So all the armed people say, okay, you can stay. And then they were basically texting the women who were inside the talks, the few who had observer status, no table, just observer. And they said, okay, we're doing this action, you tell the guys this, we tell the guys that. And then that's how they made peace. Who got all the credit for the peace talks? Guess who? The men, yes. But who cares? And I think that is something, as women, what we learn a lot is to park our egos. Not every woman parks their ego, and not all of us park our egos all the time. But we can do it. And parking our egos for the sake of community, for the sake of change, that's an important quality. And it's very interesting. So when you, for example, go to mediation training about where high-level mediators are trained. I mean, it's not called training because these guys would never dare to say that they need training. So it's a facilitated space. So when you go there, and there is a flip chart where every trainer says, like, what's the key quality of a mediator? People would say, you have to listen, you have to understand, you have to analyze. And then I always come there and says, park your ego. And I have seen so many processes fail because of male egos. And I've seen so many amazing women who've just forgot even, and they're not taking care of their mental health. They're not. We have to constantly bring all these elements you mentioned in. Also the business community, who basically is profiting from wars like crazy. So these days it's not just about, for example, oh, you want to make peace in Sudan. It's not enough to bring these male guys together who fight. You have to think, who are the actors around, the business, the other countries supporting them. And we just, my organization just supported the shuttle diplomacy initiative of women from Sudan touring the world. They went to London, to the European Union, but they also went to Saudi Arabia, to the Gulf states, to Egypt, talking to leaders in these governments, saying like, you have to stop this war. Stop supporting this war. We need peace here. It was a woman shuttle diplomacy initiative. There was no man shuttle diplomacy initiative. And women are like, and then the women get a lot of, you can't imagine how many things. We had to fight for getting them visa. Can you imagine? You're there, out there, you want to make peace, you don't even get a visa because you're an African, yeah? You know, how can you get into the EU? So there's banal things that hinder us, but really this moment of women power. Because the last point I want to make is really like, often we talk about what women not have. Yeah? The statistics are horrible. They're really horrible, also on a global scale. It's the highest number of women who died in armed conflict since World War II. Since World War II, the highest number of women dying in armed conflict. And I can go on and on and on. But it's the highest number of powerful women out there. And all of us are change makers, as we said. And change is everywhere. If you want to change, you want to end the war, start looking for yourself. Start looking at the tiny conflicts that escalate in your neighborhood and around you. And tomorrow you change the world. Because you can do it. Woo!
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you. I don't think I can even add more to that. I think
I think that's the take-home message. You know, just to remind yourselves how powerful you are in every little thing you do. Go at it with intentionality. Do not be scared with all the fear mongering around what climate change and wars are doing. We have to remain really radically optimistic and go about our day with intentionality and really believe that we can be the change that we want to see. Thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure. If you have questions, come find us.